Hi everyone, welcome back to my garden. If you have been wanting to save your own seeds from your garden but you feel overwhelmed and you're just not quite sure what to do, then this video is going to be perfect for you, because by the end of this video you're going to be feeling so inspired and ready to go out into the garden and start saving your own seeds to create an endless supply of food. Saving seeds from your own garden is a huge step towards self-sufficiency. So I've got a whole bunch of different edible flowers. I've also got some bok choy and some radishes that I need to save the seeds from. Saving seeds can seem overwhelming, but it really is just a simple process. And like most things, you can refine this over time. You don't need to be an expert seed saver to get started. Sometimes the hardest part about seed saving is deciding which plants to sacrifice and not harvest and eat. Luckily, sometimes nature does this for us and things will go to flower before we've had a chance to harvest them. Once vegetables start going to seed and flower, they become really bitter and not very nice to eat. So at that point, it is often a good idea to let the flowers go for the bees and invite lots more pollinators into your garden, and that way you can then save the seeds. Something that I get asked all the time is, how do I avoid cross-pollination when saving seeds? And the short answer is, I don't. I only have a small garden and I like to grow a whole lot of things all mixed in together. And I also love growing lots of different varieties. I love the diversity of all mixed in together, and that is what lights me up. That is what I love about gardening. This does mean that I might have some issues with cross-pollination, but I'm only collecting seeds to regrow in my own garden, and so I'm totally okay with that. They are still going to produce food. If it is something that I really want to save true seeds from and it's a rare variety, or it's something that I really want to grow again, that exact thing, I can put exclusion bags on it, or what I'll often do is I will make sure I harvest any of the other vegetables in that same family before they go to flower, and only let one variety go to flower. So this is a lot easier to do with some varieties and plants than others. Things like radishes and brassicas, I can easily do that with. But things that flower and then turn into a fruit is a little bit trickier, because you have to let it flower, otherwise you're not going to get the fruit. So those are things like your tomatoes, zucchinis and pumpkins. They are much harder to manage with the cross-pollinating. But like I said, I am just growing food for my own garden, so most of the time I'm just saving seeds anyway and seeing what happens. Cross-pollination means that the seeds that I save from that fruit or vegetable may not come out exactly the same as the one that I have saved seeds from, because they have been pollinated by another one. So it's a little bit more inconsistent and you're not quite sure what you're going to get out of those seeds. They could have some traits that are better and they could have some traits that are worse. So it is a little bit of a mixed bag. And yes, it is really important that we save seeds from our heirloom vegetables to try and keep them going for future generations. But just because we might not have the space or we aren't able to do that doesn't mean that we should just forgo saving all seeds, because that is still a really great learning opportunity. It's a great way to save money by collecting seeds from your own garden and have some fun along the way. One single fruit or vegetable can hold hundreds of seeds, and then each of those is going to produce hundreds more seeds. So it's a great way to start getting a endless supply of seeds and vegetables from your own garden. And I just think it's an incredibly amazing thing that you can have a small handful of seeds and you can just produce hundreds more and continue to grow heaps more food. The magic of seeds and the possibilities that those bring really inspires me. Drop me a comment below and say I'm so inspired if you also agree. Saving seeds from your own gardens also means that those plants are going to be way more suited to growing in your exact conditions. A lot of the seeds that we purchase are from different areas, different states, and they're used to growing in a different climate. It's like expecting us to be able to move completely different countries and be situated and ready to go on our first day. it takes a little bit of time to get used to your surroundings and to start thriving. So by saving seeds from your own garden, the next generation are going to be more suited and are going to absolutely thrive. Okay, well, how do we save seeds? So this is going to be a little bit different and determined on the type of fruit or vegetable that you're going to save seeds from. And obviously we're growing a whole bunch of different things in the garden, so there's going to be a whole lot of different ways to be saving these seeds. There's sort of three main types of ways to be saving seeds. One of them is that the plant is going to produce a root crop, so it might be a radish, and then once it's produced that radish, it's going to send up a flower from the middle, and those flowers are going to then turn into seed pods. That is the same with your brassicas, and we have a few radishes in the garden that we're going to harvest, or we're going to see if there's some seeds available to harvest. So as you can see here, this is a radish and it has sent off flowers, so this radish will not be very nice to eat anymore, and now we can just let the bees come for the flowers, and then these will turn into seed pods, so we can save the seeds. So these are the seed pods that have formed after the flowers on the radish, and once these go brown, I will harvest this and let them dry even further, and then we'll crack them open and there will be heaps of radish seeds inside. What you want to do is wait for those green seed pods to start to go brown on the plant, and that means that the seeds are going to be mature and ready to harvest. So this is a bok choy that has gone to seed and completely dried out, and now I need to harvest all of these seed pods. So inside these seed pods are the little seeds. These are bok choy seeds, and then I can just tip these into a brown paper bag and regrow them. Asian greens will often bolt when the weather gets warm, so you'll probably find if you have a few hot days, a lot of your radishes or your Asian greens or your lettuces will start to bolt and send up flowers. Then you just need to be patient and let that plant produce those seed pods so that you can harvest them. Flowers, you're going to wait until all the petals drop off and the center will start to produce seeds, and once those dry off on the plant, you can harvest them that way that they're going to be really mature. You can harvest them whilst they're still a little bit green, but the longer you leave them, the more mature they'll get, and so you know that you have more chance of having viable seeds. So here we have calendula flowers, and then once the petals all die off, it leaves behind the seed pods. So all I have to do is harvest this and save these seeds. Or sprinkle them through my garden like a seed fairy. So down here we've got some pansies, and once pansy flowers have died off, they turn into seed pods, and you can see all the little pansy seeds in there. So I can save these and let them fully dry out and regrow these. And in here, this is a tomato, and I did not plant this tomato. This is another self-seeded tomato. A tomato has fallen into the garden last summer and it's about to regrow. And then again, you want to put them somewhere nice and dry and let them fully dry out before packaging them up for storage, which we'll touch on a little bit later in the video. So these are onion flowers, and these are actually edible and they have a really delicious onion flavour. But if I wait and let these flowers finish, they'll turn into onion seeds, and I will be able to save a whole bunch of onions from my own garden. Lastly, we have the fruits, and these are ones that go from a flower into a fruit, and then the seeds are inside that fruit. And those are your things like your zucchinis, your watermelon, pumpkin, cucumbers. They all have their seeds inside the fruit. And so a lot of the time we are actually eating this fruit before it's even had time to produce seeds. And so that can mean that we are going to have to sacrifice that fruit, which is hard. Things like your pumpkin and your watermelon, sometimes you are able to get viable seeds out of that fruit and still get to enjoy eating it. Other things like your cucumbers, we tend to eat those before the seeds have formed. So we have to wait for them to go overripe and actually start to rot before the seeds are mature enough to harvest. So your really your tomatoes, your cucumbers, and your zucchinis, you need to let them go overripe, and we're going to sacrifice that fruit and we're not going to eat it. It can be a little bit gross, but it's just part of the joys of gardening, and then you're going to be able to get heaps of seeds to grow lots more food in the coming years. So what you want to do with these is, if you can, let them go overripe and sort of start to break down and rot before harvesting them, and then you just need to wash away the flesh and keep the seeds. It can be a little bit tricky because there is a sort of slimy film on the seeds, and that is to protect the seeds, because normally these fruits are eaten by animals and birds, and the seeds need to be protected so that they can pass through the stomach of the animal or survive breaking down in the soil to then regrow the next year. So there is one way that you can do this to mimic nature, and that is to take the seeds and put them in some filtered water and let them ferment over a few days. And what will happen is the viable seeds will sink to the bottom and the bad seeds will float to the top, and a white film layer will sort of appear on the surface of the water. And then all you got to do is remove that film and those bad seeds, strain off the good seeds and dry them out, and that way you're going to have hopefully a whole bunch of viable seeds ready to grow. It can be a little bit stinky because fermented rotting fruit is not something that smells delicious, but it is a really quick and easy way to do that, and it is a way that's going to produce some really good seeds. Because normally what happens is the fruit will start to rot down in the soil, and the microbes and the microorganisms in the soil will start to break down that film, and that is why our tomatoes that come out of the compost thrive, because they have had that film broken down by the microorganisms. Part of my sustainable gardening strategy is that I let some things go to flower and seed in my garden, and that way those seeds lay dormant in the soil until the temperatures are right, and they'll regrow again next year. So this tomato plant behind me I didn't plant. That is some seeds that fell down into the garden last summer, and those seeds have remained dormant in the soil until the temperatures have now warmed up and we've got a tomato plant regrowing all on its own. So I do like to let some of my plants drop seeds into the garden, and that way I don't even have to plant them. Okay, so we've got our seeds, now what? How do we store them? How do we get them ready? What you want to do is make sure that they are clean and dry, and often I will just leave them on a plate or on a paper towel or something on the bench to fully dry off, and then I pop them into a brown paper bag and put them somewhere cool and dark and dry. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can save your seeds. You don't have to put them in a brown paper bag. That's what works for me. And then I just store them in the coolest, darkest room in my house, and make sure you write on them what they are. You can write the date, and also if there's a specific trait that you have been saving for. So if that was the really sweet pumpkin, or that was the really large pumpkin, how long will they last? This sort of depends on how they're stored, the temperatures, all that sort of stuff. But you do want to try and regrow these seeds every year so that you can save fresh seeds. But if you do have seeds and they are old and you don't know if they're still viable, just give them a go, chuck them in the soil. They're going to have more of a chance to grow in the soil than they are in the packet. So don't throw out any old or expired seeds, because seeds can still grow like 10, 20 years later. You just have no idea until you give them a go. And that's just like most things in the garden. You do have to just give it a go. Don't be afraid to fail, because what's the worst that can happen? They don't grow. Failure is a really, really great way to learn. It's how we can problem solve. It's how we can figure out what went wrong. So I hope you feel inspired to get out into the garden and save your own seeds. Just give it a go. Let me know in the comments what you're going to try and save seeds from, and if you've got any questions, drop them below as well.